Ever wanted to play one of the coolest yet frustrating bullet hell games ever? Well, you might experience that if you check out the Aerofighters series, and I've played all of them. Are they worth it? Well, stick around and I'll tell you. My name's Fortifier, and welcome to Series Slayer. Throughout my life, all of my projects started with one simple game, for the most part. My first stream on Twitch was 1942 for the NES. My first fireside chat was 1942 on the NES. And my first Ready Go Gaming show was about Capcom, which, guess what? They made 1942. That game was important to me, but it's not what we're discussing today. I've always loved shoot 'em ups, although I tended to favor vertical shooters because in my opinion, they're more fun. But don't let that discredit horizontal shooters, those are fun as well. Throughout my years on Twitch and through my gaming career, I've played tons of arcade shooters, but there was one subgenre that stuck out to me the most: bullet hell. Traditional shooters are difficult, especially in the arcades, because they're meant to be. You're supposed to lose money, and that's just the nature of the beast. But bullet hells take this difficulty to a whole different level. There are more complex patterns, more anxiety, and more of an urgency in how they're presented. And it was in this subgenre that I was exposed to Aerofighters. It goes without saying, but I have taken the time to play all of these, so there are minor spoilers. If these spoilers aren't for you, then I suggest not watching this video until you've taken the time to play all of the entries in this challenging franchise. But if you're still here, then let's begin. I have a very strict set of rules that I follow when it comes to the games that I stream. Since my overall gimmick is to analyze the evolution of gaming, I always play games in the order that they are released. And in some cases, these games have spiritual predecessors, of which Aerofighters has not one, but two. Let's do a quick little history lesson. The whole Aerofighters franchise was conjured by Video Systems Co. Limited. As a company, they are very difficult to find information about, but what I can say is that their early games were mostly racing titles. In 1989, they released Tail to Nose Great Championship, which was an F1 racing title, followed by Super Formula, a knockoff Mahjong title, and F1 Grand Prix. But the one that stands out is Rabio-Lepus, also known as Rabbit Punch. Rabbit Punch, or Rabio-Lepus, is a horizontal shooter where you play as Rabio, or Rabio, I don't really know how it's pronounced, charged with rescuing the royal family of Bunnyland. At your disposal, you have a rocket launcher with limited homing missiles, a regular pea shooter, and as the title implies, a small little punch. In seeing the footage, you'll see it's kind of a cutesy poopsy kind of game. There's some esoteric enemies, containers of sake, and of course, carrots. The bosses are unique and funny, with the most memorable being Tanuki Chowdo, the man with 1,000 masks. All in all, Rabio-Lepus is a unique title, but I really didn't enjoy it. But it's important that we acknowledge this game's existence, because it was the first game created by Shinsuke Nakamura. No, not the wrestler, the game developer. Shinsuke Nakamura was the pioneer of the shoot-'em-up genre. If you've ever played Gunbird, Zero Gun, or Tengai, Soul Divide, Strikers 1945, 1 and 2, or Cannon Spike, among many others, then you can thank his creative direction. Now, in terms of Rabio-Lepus, I played the arcade version, but if you want to shell out the money for the Rabio-Lepus special version, which is on the TurboGrafx 16, you can do that as well. Now, there's another game that predates Aerofighters. It's called Turbo Force. This game fucking sucks. I'd venture to say that this, hands down, is one of the worst shooters I have ever had the misfortune of playing. The graphic design lead for the game, So Kojin Yoken, even said that the developers did just whatever the fuck they wanted in designing the game. And boy howdy, does it show. You play as a flying car with guns. You move slowly, so much that it's really difficult to avoid projectiles. The enemies are bullet sponges and the bosses are asinine. Now the early levels, they're not so bad. Then you get about 12 minutes into the game, and well, if you've ever wondered what it feels like to sit down vertically on a traffic cone, you'll figure it out soon enough. Final boss is a car. I hate this game. It's on the TurboGrafx 16 as well, but good news, it does get better. In 1992, we were graced with Aerofighters, also known as Sonic Wings. With 8 pilots, 2 from USA, Japan, Sweden, as well as England, and decent plot involving stopping the global destruction from an alien race, this game is legit. In terms of pilots, we have Keith and Keaton. Keith flies an F-14 while Keaton flies an F-18, and if you play 2-player with Keith, the second player will always be Keaton. And while Keith has a promising ending where he is reunited with his kids, if you play as Keaton, you just straight up fucking die. That's you, you're dead. And then your little brother, who looks exactly the same as you, Zapper Keaton, looks up to the sky and swears revenge, starting the second loop of the game. This is a trend. Sonic Wings is one of those beat it twice franchises similar to Ghosts and Goblins. And at first I was pissed, but in the end, I kind of liked it. But we gotta go back to the characters, because the characters are the best part of this game series in my opinion. From Japan, we have the ninja Hien, who flies a FSX, and a series staple Mao Mao, who flies an F-15. If you beat the game with Mao Mao, we see an ending where the whole game's events are just a dream, and you wake next to this little plushie. Look familiar? That's Rabio. Cute reference, right? Anyway, from Sweden, we have Kalful, who flies an AJ-37, and his robot companion that he created, TBA-10, who flies a Jazz-39. Finally, we have Sir William Pride in the AV-8 and Lord River in White in the IDS. Fun fact, he's the king of Bunnyland from Rabio Lepus. And it goes without saying, but many games didn't offer this much variety, much less an arcade vertical shooter. For the longest time, you were lucky to just get up to 4 different options in shooters, but we had 8. And even then, if you managed to have a second player with you, they could be an entirely different airplane with entirely different attacks. This game is a solid 10 out of 10, and I enjoyed every second of it. Also, if you own the SNES version of this game, you can use a cheat code and play as Rabio and Lepus. True story. Next up is Sonic Wings 2 or Aerofighters 2. After the events of Sonic Wings 2, we find out that our protagonist simply deterred the enemy but didn't really destroy them. Seeing that there are about 4 more games, you can kind of see the writing on the wall that the plot, for the most part, doesn't change. Also, this is the era of Neo Geo titles, so you already know the difficulty is going to go fucking apeshit, as is the norm for any Neo Geo title at the time. Now, I beat this on level 4, which is the standard factory difficulty, and even then, it was rough, but god, it was good. It's time for some characters though. Hien and Mao Mao make a return, while from England we have Angela and Arthur. What the fuck? That's a baby! Whose baby? Well, Sir William Pride's. Apparently he got lucky at the end of Sonic Wings, and fun fact, he's a baby detective. And also a pilot at 1 year old. I'm not making this up, it's in the manual. Also, Angela is known as Steve and Arthur as Bobby in the US release of the game. I don't know why they changed it. What the fuck? Is that a dolphin? Yeah, that's Spanky. He's a dolphin. He flies a YF-23, and I play only as him because at the end of the day, where else are you going to fly a fighter jet as a dolphin? Then we have Captain Silver and Robo Keaton. You remember when Keaton died at the ending of Sonic Wings 1? Well, they made him into a robot. The only thing that survived was his head, and in his ending, he ejects with only his head again. What makes this game unique is the roughly 30 different combinations of endings that you can get. You choose one character, but unlike Sonic Wings 1, you can choose characters from other countries to serve as player 2. This means that there will be different endings for Spanky and Bobby, Angela and Mao Mao, Mao Mao and Captain Silver and Hien, you name it, you get a different ending. And to sweeten the pot, you have an alternate ending for if you're playing a single player or a 2-player game. So let's do the math. In a 1-player game, that means 55 different unique endings. Add another 55 different unique endings for 2-player, and add in 4 potential bad endings and 4 potential good endings. This game has massive replayability, and if you're someone who chases game endings, you're gonna have a really good time. I love this, and you should check it out as well. Sonic Wings 3 came out in 1995 and takes place 3 months after the events of Sonic Wings 2. It's the same thing, so you can just expect that, but let's be honest, you're here for the characters, right? You're here for the characters. We have Alex, who loves his pussycat, who is paired with Ellen and Cynthia. If you beat the game, Ellen gets married, and you see William Sid Pride, Arthur Mao Mao, Cynthia, and Lord River and White attend the wedding. We also have Glenn and Gil, who were in another V-System game known as Karate Blazers, but I've never played it. There's another character that tags along with him called Glinda, and apparently she's named after the Good Witch. Then we have Chaika and Pushika, whose endings feature Lord River and White, and Captain Silver, who has Spanky, oddly enough named Whitey, and in this game he removed... Holy shit! You know, I like to think this is how people felt when they realized that Samus was a girl in the original Metroid. But at the end of the day, my idol was destroyed. My hopes dashed. Spanky was a man in costume the whole time. Anyway, Hien and Mao Mao come back and we meet 2 new characters, Gore and Kotomi. Kalful returns with his horny hat flying with Lord River and White, and another new group of characters, Malcolm and Captain Waffle. Malcolm is from another game from V-System called Tao Taito, and again, I've never played it. Finally, Blaster Keaton and my main squeeze Whitey come back to join the party as well. Oh, and by the way, this game has branching paths, so if you're curious, you can shoot off certain wings of certain airplanes that are bosses, and it will kind of lead you on different paths. Here's a fancy flowchart I found on Google. Are you impressed? Good. As a trilogy, this was the most epic way to bring all of these characters back together for one last Neo Geo shindig before we moved on to where the series rapidly went downhill. And by downhill, I mean Sonic Wings Special and Sonic Wings Limited. Sonic Wings Special was on the Saturn, but I played Sonic Wings Limited. They're essentially the same game, so don't get too confused. Sonic Wings Special was essentially a conglomeration of all of the best things that Sonic Wings had to offer to date. It featured past levels, cameos to all of the characters, and it was just a really straightforward fan service title. However, Sonic Wings Limited was, well, limited. This is footage of Sonic Wings Special. It's fun, it's challenging, it's what we know and love from the franchise. Then we have Sonic Wings Limited. This is depressing. It's a radical dressing down from what we're used to, and it's what happens when you ask for Sonic Wings and your mom tells you have Sonic Wings at home. It was a piece of shit, arcade trash that just paved the way for what we were to expect in the future from V-Systems. And here we are now, with the last game on the Nintendo 64 with Aerofighter Assault. It's the late 90s. The arcade has totally diminished from popularity. 3D is taking the spotlight for how games should be presented, and many companies had to accept that challenge of jumping to a 3D medium or to be left in the dust. But let me tell you a little secret. Some companies got so left in the dust that their dust gets covered by other dust covered with linoleum, and that's what Aerofighter Assault is. Crusty, dusty bullshit. Think of Star Fox, but with actual airplanes. Think of the closest thing to Ace Combat 2 that you would be able to get on your Nintendo 64. This game, on paper, is fundamentally awesome. If you looked at it for face value, it's great. But in execution, it was absolutely terrible. It's so cool to fly these airplanes, but the Nintendo 64 simply could not handle it. If you take the time to play, you'll notice that the frame rate is impossible to get past. For the first time in Series Slayer history, I had to officially fuck off a game. I cannot tell you about the plot, nor do I know much about the game, but after suffering 4 hours on one stage because of draw distance and stuttering, I had to retire the game. I do want to go back and play it. Maybe I'll try it on an emulator so I can speed up the processes, maybe even sharpen the image up a little bit, but that's not the point of what I do. I play these games 90% on their true medium, and this game just didn't make the cut. So that begs the question of if this franchise is worth it. Yes, I think it is. If you take out those oddball final entries and solely focus on the original trilogy of Sonic Wings or Aerofighters, you're good to go. You get bullet hell shooters that stand up against the big dogs like Batsugan and Ikaruga, titles that I love from Cave and the likes. Sonic Wings may have ended on a sour note, but through and through was a good experience, and I'm glad I took the time to check them all out. But that's enough out of me. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and if you don't mind, give me a thumbs up and also hit that subscribe button. And as always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes, Fortify out.